The world is not equal. Some countries are incredibly rich, while others struggle to survive on less than $2,000 a year. Imagine living in a country where a single citizen produces more wealth in a year than most people in another country can earn in a lifetime. This is not science fiction. This is reality. Today, we are going to explore global wealth inequality. We will look at how it is measured, why it exists, and what it means for the lives of billions of people. We will focus on 4 key indicators: GDP per capita, using purchasing power parity, GDP per capita in nominal dollars, life expectancy, and the share of population living in extreme poverty. These indicators help us understand not only how much money a country produces, but also how wealth translates into real life. It affects health, education, opportunities, and the everyday choices people can make. By the end of this video, you will see the vast differences that exist on the same planet. You will understand how some people live in cities of gleaming skyscrapers, while others wake up in homes without electricity or running water. And you will understand why these differences are not random. They are the result of history, geography, politics, and economic choices. Before we start looking at specific countries, consider this. The richest 10% of the world's population owns more than half of all global wealth. Meanwhile, the bottom 50% owns almost nothing. The scale of this difference is hard to imagine, but we will make it clear. We will examine the richest countries first, the places where life is the most comfortable, the most secure, and the most prosperous. Then we will move through developed nations, countries with strong economies but less extreme wealth. Next, we will explore the countries that make up the average world, where most people live. Finally, we will look at the poorest countries, where daily survival is a struggle and opportunities are scarce. Along the way, we will compare these countries, see patterns, and understand what factors create such massive differences. You will also see that wealth is not just about money. It affects life expectancy, the quality of education, access to healthcare, and even the safety of communities. For example, in Luxembourg, a person can expect to live over 82 years, while in Burundi, life expectancy is just under 65 years. This gap is not just a number, it represents decades of life, health, and opportunity. The richest countries are not necessarily the largest. Many of them are small in population but extremely wealthy, like Luxembourg, Singapore, and Qatar. Their economies are highly productive, their governments stable, and their citizens enjoy freedoms and opportunities that are rare in the world. Singapore, for example, transformed from a small port city into a global financial hub in just a few decades. Its GDP per capita is around $135,000, showing how innovation, education, and governance can create enormous wealth. Luxembourg, with about $140,000 per person, benefits from finance, industry, and a strong social system. Even Ireland, which historically had economic struggles, reached $125,000 per person through foreign investments in technology sectors. These countries demonstrate what is possible when resources, planning, and human capital come together efficiently. Citizens in these countries enjoy high standards of living, reliable healthcare, access to modern technology, clean cities, and educational opportunities from early childhood to university. The difference between these countries and the poorest nations is staggering. A person in Luxembourg produces more in a single year than a citizen in Burundi will earn in more than a century. Yet, while these countries are few in number, their wealth affects global markets, politics, and trade. Decisions made in these countries influence the lives of millions worldwide. Understanding them helps us see the top end of human prosperity, and it sets a benchmark for what is possible in terms of wealth, health, and quality of life. Next, we move to developed countries. These are nations with strong economies, high standards of living, and advanced infrastructure. Examples include the United States, Germany, Japan, France, and South Korea. The United States has a GDP per capita of around $70,000, slightly lower than the top wealthiest nations, but still extremely high on a global scale. Germany reaches about $60,000 per person, reflecting a strong industrial base and high productivity. Japan has roughly $55,000 per person, benefiting from advanced technology, education, and innovation. France sits near $55,000 as well, combining industrial strength, services, and social support systems. South Korea, once a developing country, now has over $45,000 per person, a result of rapid industrialization and technological growth. These countries share some characteristics with the richest nations, but there are important differences. Their populations are much larger, meaning wealth is spread over more people. They also have complex social and political systems, which sometimes slow down economic growth compared to small city-states like Luxembourg or Singapore. Healthcare is advanced, but not every citizen may have the same access or quality. Education is generally strong, but differences exist between regions and social groups. Infrastructure is highly developed, yet traffic congestion, aging cities, and environmental challenges remain. Even so, people in these nations live comfortable lives compared to the majority of the world. Homes are safe, electricity is reliable, water is clean, and technology is widely available. Most people can access higher education, medical care, and employment opportunities. Yet, within these countries, there is still inequality. Some people live in extreme wealth, while others struggle with low income or precarious work. Income gaps are smaller than in the poorest nations, but they are visible and have social consequences. Life expectancy in these countries is high, typically around 80 years, showing how wealth translates into health and longevity. Access to technology allows people to communicate, work, and innovate in ways impossible in poorer nations. These countries also influence global economics. The United States, Germany, and Japan are major exporters, importers, and investors, shaping trade flows and financial systems worldwide. They create trends that affect not just their citizens, but the economy of the entire planet. Understanding developed countries gives us a sense of what is achievable with strong institutions, industry, and governance. It also shows the gap between them and the richest nations, which may seem small in relative terms, but still represents tens of thousands of dollars per person. In comparison to the average world, even these developed countries are far ahead. They show how wealth can be combined with technology, infrastructure, and policy to create a high standard of living for millions. And yet, even with this high standard, they are not the absolute peak of global wealth. Small countries like Luxembourg, Singapore, and Qatar still surpass them significantly. Looking at these nations helps us understand the middle tier of global prosperity, the level at which most developed nations exist today. It prepares us for the next step, examining the countries where most of the world's population lives, and where wealth is far lower than in these developed nations. Next, we come to what we call the average world. This is where most of humanity lives. Countries like China, Brazil, Indonesia, Mexico, and Russia fall into this category. Their GDP per capita ranges roughly from $10,000 to $40,000 per person. These nations are not poor in the global sense. They have cities, industries, schools, hospitals, and technology. Yet, life here is very different from the richest countries. China, for example, has a GDP per capita of about $18,000. It has grown dramatically over the past 40 years, lifting hundreds of millions out of poverty. Its cities are modern and prosperous, but rural areas often remain underdeveloped. In Brazil, the GDP per capita is around $15,000. The country has wealth, natural resources, and major cities like São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, But inequality is high. Large slums exist alongside luxury neighborhoods. Indonesia has about $13,000 per person. Its economy is growing, but many islands and regions remain isolated, with limited access to healthcare and education. Mexico has approximately $12,000 per person. It is rich in culture and resources, but social inequality and crime affect daily life for millions. Russia, with around $35,000 per person, is higher on this scale. Its cities, like Moscow and St. Petersburg, show a high standard of living. However, vast areas of the country face lower incomes, less infrastructure, and limited services. In these countries, wealth is often concentrated in cities and industrial regions. Rural populations may have less access to education, healthcare, and opportunities for advancement. Even though GDP per capita gives an average number, it does not show the gaps inside the country. Millions live below the national average, while a small fraction enjoys wealth closer to developed countries. Life expectancy varies widely. In Russia, it is about 73 years, while in Brazil, it is 76, and in Mexico, around 75. These numbers are good, but they are still lower than the richest nations, where life expectancy often exceeds 80 years. Access to technology and services is also uneven. While city residents may enjoy modern hospitals, high-speed internet, and international travel, people in remote areas may have only basic facilities. Education systems differ widely as well. Some children attend excellent schools and universities, while others struggle with outdated classrooms and limited resources. Despite these challenges, these countries are dynamic. Economic growth, urbanization, and globalization create opportunities that were unimaginable just a few decades ago. Millions move from rural areas to cities, finding jobs, starting businesses, and improving their lives. Technology, trade, and investment bring new possibilities every year. Yet, the contrast with developed and richest countries remains stark. A person in Moscow may earn more than someone in Indonesia or Mexico, but still far less than someone in Germany or Singapore. Understanding the average world is crucial because it represents the reality for most people on the planet. It is neither extreme wealth nor extreme poverty, but a mixture of progress and struggle. It shows how economic growth can improve lives, while also revealing the persistent challenges of inequality and uneven development. Looking at these countries helps us understand the middle ground. It prepares us for the final step, the poorest nations, where daily life is a struggle and opportunities are limited. And it shows why global inequality is not just about rich or poor countries, it is also about the gaps inside countries and between cities and rural areas. Finally, we come to the poorest countries in the world. These include Burundi, South Sudan, the Central African Republic, Malawi, and Mozambique. Their GDP per capita is extremely low, often less than $2,000 per person per year. In Burundi, the GDP per capita is about $900. In South Sudan, it is around $1,100. In the Central African Republic, about $1,300. Malawi has approximately $1,600 per person, and Mozambique around $1,700. These numbers are staggering when compared to the richest nations. A person in Luxembourg earns more in a single year than a citizen in Burundi will earn in more than a century. This extreme inequality affects every aspect of life. Healthcare is limited, and access to hospitals or doctors is often far away. Many children are malnourished, and preventable diseases remain a leading cause of death. Education is scarce. Schools are often overcrowded, underfunded, or distant from children's homes. Many children cannot attend school at all. Infrastructure is poor. Roads are often unpaved. Electricity is unreliable, and clean water is not always available. Daily survival takes priority over long-term plans. Most people work in agriculture or informal jobs, earning just enough to feed their families. Opportunities to start businesses, travel, or pursue higher education are extremely limited. Life expectancy in these countries is low. In Burundi, it is about 64 years, in South Sudan 65, and in the Central African Republic, also around 65. Malawi and Mozambique are slightly higher, at 65 to 66 years. These numbers show decades of life lost compared to the richest countries. Extreme poverty also affects safety and stability. Many people live in conflict zones or regions with weak government support. Resources like food, medicine, and fuel can be scarce, and communities often rely on aid organizations. Despite these challenges, people show resilience and ingenuity. They create local solutions to survive, build communities, and find ways to educate their children. Yet, the gap between these nations and the rest of the world is enormous. A child born in Mozambique has vastly different opportunities than a child born in Switzerland or the United States. Understanding the lives of people in these countries highlights the scale of global inequality. It is not just about numbers, it is about daily experiences, choices, and freedoms. It also shows why global development efforts, international aid, and investment are crucial. Even small improvements in health, education, or infrastructure can dramatically change lives. When we compare these countries with the richest nations, the middle world, and developed countries, the differences become stark. From the top to the bottom, the world's economic spectrum is almost unimaginable, and yet, millions of people live in each of these categories, shaping the global picture of wealth and inequality. By understanding the poorest countries, we gain perspective on the challenges humanity faces and the work that remains to create a more equitable world. Now that we have explored the richest, developed, middle, and poorest countries, it is time to compare them all. The differences are staggering. In Luxembourg, a person produces roughly $140,000 per year. In Burundi, a person produces less than $1,000 per year. That is more than 100 times difference in wealth per person. Even comparing developed countries like the United States or Germany to the average world, the gaps remain very large. A citizen in Germany earns about $60,000 per year, while a person in Indonesia earns just over $13,000. This shows that inequality is not only between rich and poor nations, but also within the middle range of countries. Life expectancy reflects this as well. People in the richest countries can expect to live more than 82 years, while in the poorest countries it is often less than 65. This gap is nearly 2 decades of life. Education opportunities follow a similar pattern. In wealthy nations, children attend well-equipped schools and universities, gaining knowledge and skills for high-paying jobs. In poor countries, schools may be far, overcrowded, or lack basic materials, limiting future prospects. Access to healthcare is another stark difference. In Switzerland or Singapore, people have advanced hospitals, preventive care, and modern treatments. In Malawi or South Sudan, medical facilities are scarce, and preventable diseases remain deadly. Infrastructure separates the world even further. High-speed trains, highways, airports, clean water, electricity, and internet are common in rich and developed nations. In the poorest countries, many roads are unpaved, electricity is unreliable, and internet access is minimal. Daily life is shaped by these differences. In wealthy nations, people can pursue careers, hobbies, education, and travel with relative ease. In the poorest nations, most of the day is spent securing food, water, and safety. This contrast is not just economic, it is social, cultural, and human. Inequality also influences global politics and economics. The richest countries set rules for trade, finance, and international agreements. The poorest countries often follow, sometimes struggling to protect their interests. Middle-income countries navigate a path between these extremes, striving for growth, stability, and fairness. Understanding global inequality is not only about numbers, it is about seeing how the world is divided in opportunities, health, safety, and education. It is about realizing that where a person is born greatly affects what they can achieve in life. Wealth alone is not the only factor, but it strongly determines access to the essentials for a good life. It affects life expectancy, quality of education, the ability to start a business, and even the security of daily life. Wealth inequality also drives migration, international aid, and global investment patterns. People move from poor to richer countries in search of better opportunities. Aid programs try to improve health, education, and infrastructure in struggling nations. Investment from wealthier countries can create jobs, build schools, and improve economies. But it is not always enough. The challenge of global inequality is massive, but not insurmountable. By understanding the scale and causes of inequality, policymakers, organizations, and individuals can make better decisions. This knowledge can guide investments, reforms, and social programs to create more opportunities worldwide. Ultimately, the world's wealth gap is a reminder of both human achievement and human struggle. Some countries demonstrate what is possible with resources, governance, and innovation. Others show the limits that poverty and lack of opportunity can impose on people's lives. By examining all levels from the richest nations to the poorest, we gain a full picture of global inequality. We can see the progress humanity has made, and also the work that remains. Understanding these differences is the first step toward a more equitable world. It allows us to appreciate what wealth and opportunity mean, not just for ourselves, but for billions of others. By the end of this exploration, the lesson is clear. Where a person is born can shape almost every aspect of their life. Wealth, opportunity, health, education, and safety are not evenly distributed. But understanding these realities is the first step in closing the gap. It is a reminder that global inequality is not just numbers. It is real people, real lives, and the choices societies make. And while the differences are enormous, change is possible through knowledge, action, and cooperation.